Ratios and proportions. Remember to listen to the video, show all of your work. If I write it, you write it. If you need to stop the video, you can do that to work it out and show your work. Or you can rewind the video to listen to it again if you've missed something. All right, what is a ratio? A ratio is a multiplicative comparison of two quantities which describe the same attribute. They can be written in several ways. For example, there are 2 dogs to every 3 cats. So the words 2 dogs to 3 cats, with a colon you can do 2 colon 3, and a fraction you can do 2 to 3. Ratios can also be written in simplest terms or simplified. Same thing as when I tell you to simplify your fraction, make sure it's in lowest terms. So it's the same thing with ratios. And that's, really all it is. It's the comparison of a part to a whole. All right, so let's look at some examples here. Use the soccer equipment below to practice writing ratios. We want gloves to the total equipment. Okay, so we're going to count 1, 2, 3. So I see 3 gloves, 2, and what's the total? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, 3 to 12. But 3 to 12 can be simplified. If I divide by 3, I'm going to get 1/4. Okay, so I can leave it as a fraction, or I can leave it as a ratio with colons, 1 to 4. Okay, it's very important that you know that you're doing like gloves to equipment. Okay, because when it gets more complicated, you may be getting them mixed up, and that's going to make it wrong. So just make sure you're comparing them in the order that they ask that you do that. So cleats to cones. So cleats, I have 1, 2, 3. So 3 cleats to 1, 2, 3 cones. So again, that would be 3 over 3, which can be simplified to 1 to 1 or 1 over 1. Okay, let's make sure it's in simplest form. Water bottles to total equipment. Okay, so water bottles, I have 1, 2, and I know the total equipment we counted earlier was 12, which can be simplified if I divided both of those by 2. It would be 1/6 or 1/6. If it's easier for you to see it that way, you can do it to fractions and simplify your fraction. Okay, things that you wear to your total equipment. Okay, things that I wear. We could wear gloves and cleats. I guess that would be it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And total equipment is 12. So again, 6/12 can be simplified to 1/6. If I divide 6 by 6, I get 1. 12 by 6, I get 2. My bad. I was in a rush, but I caught it. If I'm dividing by 6, it's going to be 2. Okay. Total equipment to cleats. Total equipment to cleats. My total equipment is 12, and my cleats are 1, 2, 3. Okay, I can still simplify that to 4 to 1. So 4 over 1 is start off as 12/3. Okay, we don't change it. I know that's an improper fraction, but when we're doing ratios, we're going to leave it as improper. Okay, please don't change that. Soccer balls to water bottles. Soccer balls would be 1, and water bottles are 2. So it can be written either way. Okay, next would be the things that you wear. Cones to the things that you wear. So cones are 3. And we counted earlier about the things that you wear were 6. So 3/6, which can be simplified. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So 1 to 2. And then we're going to have cones to water bottles. So cones is 3. And water bottles is 2. Okay, so 3/2. Either one will work. It's just depending on how you prefer the ratio to be written. Okay, write the ratios below, then determine if the ratios are different and justify your thinking. Okay, so we have gloves to water bottles. So remember, we always want to go in order. So gloves, I had 3 gloves, and I have 2 water bottles. And then over here I have water bottles is 2, and the gloves were 3. So even though they're asking the same thing, remember, you have to list it in the order they're asking. If you don't list it from gloves to water bottles or water bottles to gloves, it will be wrong. If these two answers were switched, it would be wrong. You have to really watch out what they're asking for. And like I said, sometimes gloves to water, and then water bottles to gloves. Listing things out like that kind of helped me, but I am a visual learner. All right, proportions. A proportion shows 2 equal ratios in the form of an equation. Proportions can be solved by scaling or setting up an equation for the solving. Okay, so here we have 2/3 x over 24. So like up here we have 2 to 3. So I had 2 water bottles to 3 gloves. If I had 24 gloves, how many water bottles would I have? So I'm thinking, okay, 3 to 24. How did 3 get to 24? If I multiply by 8, 3 times 8 is 24. If I do that to the bottom, I got to do it to the top. 2 times 8 would be 16. Okay, there's one way to do it. But then we have what would be called the cross product, or simply called the butterfly method. And I know we've went over this last year a little bit. Cross product is probably the more official term, and that would be, just multiplying across. Product means multiply. But it's also called the butterfly method because it kind of looks like a butterfly. So we would do 3x, 3 times x, needs to equal 2 times 24 to solve the equation. Okay, so I'd have 3x equals, and 2 times 24 is 48, divided by 3, because that we've learned how to solve equations, and so x equals 16. Okay, the easier way is to see if there is a corresponding relation If you see that you can multiply something to get the other equation, you can do that. Either way works. Sometimes it's not this easy and you have to solve by equations and do the cross product. The cross product of the proportion will always be equal. Okay? Number 1 in the back. The surf shop has 8 life jackets and 5 pairs of goggles in stock after a clearance sale. Record the ratios below. So I want 8 life jackets and 5 pair of goggles. I want life jackets to goggles. Okay, so if I come up here, I'm going to go life jackets, 8 to 5. Okay, that's one way to write it. And remember, we can write it 8 over 5. Either one works. And then if I do goggles to the total, goggles were 5. And the total would be adding 8 plus 5. And that would be 13. Okay, the total of items that we're comparing them to. So we just added those up for the total. And to write it in fraction form would be 5 to 13. So again, either way you like to write your ratios, it's fine. Just I would list them in the order they're wanting them to make sure you're getting it right. Okay, if 40 pairs of goggles are ordered, how many life jackets should be ordered? Okay, so again, I'm going to have 8 life jackets to goggles. And remember, proportions have to be equal to each other. So 40 pairs of goggles. So where's my goggles? On top or bottom? And it's on bottom. So I'm going to put my 40 over here. And I want to know how many life jackets need to be ordered. Life jackets are on top, goggles are on the bottom. I do see the relationship, so I don't have to do my cross product. 5 times what gives me 40? So 5 times 8, then 8 times 8 would be 64. So 64 life jackets. It's easy when you see the relationship. Okay, if 30 sets of goggles are ordered, how many total items should the surf shop order? Okay, so I've got 5 to 30. These are my 30 sets of goggles. So both of this is goggles that I have, and I want to order 30 sets of them. Okay, that's going to equal, oh, my bad. That's why you work in pencil. I was looking at the wrong thing. Okay, goggles and total. Okay, if I don't list it, I get confused. So the total we said was 13. So 5 to 13. And if I order 30 goggles, how much will the total be? Okay, we have to keep the order the same. So, do you see a relationship, or do we need to do a cross product? 5 times what gives me 30? 5 times 6. So then 13 times 6 should give you 78 total items. 78 total items. If you see the relationship, it's much easier than doing the cross product. But if you don't see the relationship, you must do the cross product, which is the butterfly method. All right, the ratio of creamy to crunchy peanut butter jars in a grocery store shelf is 5 to 3. Okay, so creamy to crunchy. So this is going to be creamy, and it's going to be crunchy. 5 to 3. There are 18 jars of crunchy peanut butter. What is the total number of jars of peanut butter on the shelf? Okay. So there are 18 jars of crunchy peanut butter. What is the total number of jars of peanut butter on the shelf? So we're going to work with crunchy, which is my 3, to the total. So crunchy, I'll put crunchy to total. 5 plus 3 is 8. And if there are 18 jars of crunchy on the shelf, how many total jars are there? I see a relationship. So 3 times 6 is 18. 8 times 6 is 48. So 48 jars are on the shelf. Okay. Christy travels by plane at an average speed of 387.5 miles per hour for 2 hours, and by car at an average speed of 56.8 miles per hour for 1.25 hours. What was the total distance in miles Christy traveled during this time? Okay, so she went 387.5 in 2 hours. Miles per hour for 2 hours. And by car, an average speed of 56.8 miles per hour for 1.5. What was the total distance in miles Christy traveled during this time? So that's miles per hour, so I'd multiply this. Multiply by 2. This isn't setting it up as the ratios, but this is what I'm going to do. Okay, this one I'll explain in class. We'll go over it later because I really wouldn't set that up as a ratio. I would solve it a different way. So let's move on to number 4. The ratio of 3 to 8 is equivalent to the ratio of 24 to 64. Place a check mark next to any of the proportions that show this equivalency. So anything that would equal 3 to 8 or 24 to 64. Okay, so 3 to 8 is what we're looking for. So 24, let's set it up this way. So I've got 3 to 8 and 24 to 64. Okay, so that's what we're kind of looking for. So we got 24 to 64. That's here. And it should be 3 to 8. So this one is wrong. Okay. If I have 64 here and 3 on the bottom, so those are my opposites, and then 24 to 8. So those are opposites. That wouldn't work. Remember, it's important that they are in the same order. So we have 8 to 3 and 64 to 24. So 3 and 24 are still at the same level, on the same level, and 8 to 64. So this one will work. And then we have 8 to 64 and 3 to 24. This one will work. Okay, those are all equivalent to this. I'll explain that more when I'm in class, but hopefully you can see the relations. They just manipulated the numbers, but they're still with the same order of 24 has to be with 3 and 64 has to be with 8. So anyway, all right, number 5. A small university enrolls in state and out-of-state students. The number of students enrolled in their most recent freshman class was 243. The school reported that it enrolled 7 in-state students for every 2 out-of-state students. How many in-state and out-of-state students were enrolled in the freshman class? So what do I need to know? Or actually, what do I know from reading? We know that 243 total students. Okay, that's what it told us. And 7 in-state and 2 out of state. 7 to 2. What I need to know is what it's asking me. How many in-state and out-of-state students were in the freshman class? Okay? So our work would be in-state. Okay? 7 to 9. And you're asking, well, where'd you get 9 at? Well, remember my total is 7 to 2. So 7 plus 2 is 9. So my in-state to my total, because if I had a total of 243, I want to know how many would be in-state. Okay? And we would do the same for out-of-state. And that would be 2 over 9 would equal how many over the total? Okay, so again, if you notice a relation, we can use that. Okay, if you would divide 243 by 9, you would see that 9 goes in there 27 times. So 9 times 27 is going to be 243. So if I do that to the bottom, I can times 7 by 27. And I should get 189. And that would be in-state students over the total. So my out-of-state students would do the same thing. 9 times 27, 2 times 27. So we do 2 times 27, and that's going to give you 54. Okay? When you see the relation, it's much easier. So we have 189 in-state students and 54 out-of-state students. let's look at the back. Number 1, at the ice cream shop, there are 14 shakes sold for every 6 malts. Record the ratios. Malts to shakes. Okay, so all you're doing is going to compare. You have 14 shakes, 6 malts. You're going to do malts to shakes. Simplest form. You can reduce and show your work up here. And then malts to total. Malts to total. I want you to do this page by yourself. Okay? Look back at the previous examples that we just worked out. Okay, number 2. 8 out of 10 dentists prefer whitening toothpaste. What is the ratio of dentists who does not prefer whitening toothpaste? Okay, this one is a little different. Okay, so we said 8 to 10 do. So what would that be of those who did not? Oh, dentists who do not prefer whitening toothpaste to those who do. So do not to do. So they do. We have 8 that do. Oh, and then do not is at first. So we have 2. Because if this was out of 10, 8 out of 10 do prefer it. That means 2 out of 10 do not prefer it. Oops, can't see it. And then the do not to the do's. So this one's a little different, and that can be simplified. So I want you to simplify and put your answer there. Okay? Number 3. Everin used 24 centimeters of tape to wrap 3 presents. How many presents would Everin be able to wrap with 112 centimeters of tape? So 24 centimeters for 3 presents. How many presents would Everin be able to wrap with 112 centimeters? So there, I set it up for you, and I want you to find your X. An NFL kicker misses 2 out of every 11 field goals. If he missed 8 field goals throughout the season, how many did he attempt? So he misses 2 out of 11 is what he missed. And so if he missed 8 throughout the season, how many did he attempt? Okay, so again, I set it up, you solve it. Number 5. First Class Airlines has 40 pilots for every 15 aircrafts. If they employ 250 pilots, how many aircrafts does First Class Airlines own? Okay, so we have pilots over airplanes. We have 40 pilots for 15 aircraft. Pilots, 250. And I'm trying to find out how many aircrafts. So I set it up, you solve it. Look for relationships. An amusement park sells child and adult tickets at a ratio of 8 to 1. On Saturday, they sold 147 more child tickets than adult tickets. How many tickets did the amusement park sell on Saturday? So adult tickets are 8 to 1. Child and adult tickets. So this one's child, okay, to 1 adult. So on Saturday, they sold 147 more child tickets than adult tickets. So again, that child. How many tickets did the amusement park sell on Saturday? So 8 is your children. 147 is your children. We're just going to do it that way. See if that one may not have a relationship. Let's see, 147. Nope. Okay, tell you what, we'll do this one in class together. Okay. Number 7. The library at school is organized by fiction and nonfiction books. There are 3 nonfiction books for every 7 fiction books. How many total books are there if the library has 240 books? So 3, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Okay, so we have 3 that are nonfiction to the total. Nonfiction to total. Total would be 10. And we have 240, but we need to know the total. Okay, number 8. Bruno's Burgers has a cook to server ratio of 2 to 5. The total number of servers and cooks is 42. How many more servers does Bruno's Burgers employ than cooks? So the difference here is from is 2 to 5 would be the 3 out of 7. The difference to the total. Okay, so the bottom would be the 42 for the cooks. And you're solving for X. All right, I think, is that the last page? Yes. All right, so show your work, know your thinking, write everything down, and we'll go over it tomorrow. Make sure you get it done for homework.